Good afternoon. Welcome to the afternoon regular session of the Board of County Commissioners, October 25th, 2022. You'll see four of us on the podium, and one of us, Commissioner Burney, is joining us remotely. Commissioner Burney? So we are.
Thank you.
We have what looks like a short agenda this afternoon, but it did last week also. So let's see how it goes. So we'll begin in, Mr. Mokrajewski, with the second reading and public hearing on ordinance 22-08. And at this time, this is the time set for a second reading and public hearing for ordinance 22-08 in the matter of amending Lane Code Chapter 4 to make administrative corrections and declaring an emergency. The first reading for this ordinance was held on October 11th, 2022. And now, Mr. Mokrajewski, I'm going to hand it over to you and staff, if you would introduce your panel for some of the item prior to public hearing.
Chair Jeff Kincaid, Management Analyst in County Administration, is going to handle this item. Jeff.
Thank you, Steve. Again, my name is Jeff Kincaid. I'm a Management Analyst in County Administration. Good afternoon, Chair Farr, Commissioners. As a reminder, Ordinance 2208 is primarily intended to correct three administrative items to the recent changes we did to Lane Code Chapter 4. The first being removing references to certificates of authority that Oregon Department of Revenue has let us know that they didn't intend to issue. So it was kind of an omission that it was still in the code items that they had sent us. The second, and really the most important one, is clearly establishing January 1st, 2023 as the start date for car rental tax. We were pretty clear about transient lodging tax, and we missed it on car rental tax. So we don't want there to be a 3-month weird issue for the car rental tax. So we're very clearly identifying that date. And then clarifying language on tax imposed that are not calculable to a whole cent, which is just a small little tweak to the language there. It also declares an emergency so that it's in effect, so we don't have a weird gap where there's a couple weeks where it's effective and then it's pushed back to January. So that's the reason for the emergency clause in this ordinance. For the board's awareness, I haven't received any feedback. I haven't heard anything on this item. They're pretty minor administrative corrections, so I wouldn't expect there to be a lot of issues with it. So I will pass it back to you, Chair Farr, for further action in public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Kincaid. I'll now open the public hearing. Ms. Ellis, anyone in Harris Hall? No one in Harris Hall present for a public hearing. Ms. Jones, anyone signed up online for a public hearing?
I do not believe so. One moment. My screen just froze. 1 second. No, we have no one signed up for a public hearing.
Very well. With that in mind, do any commissioners have a conflict they wish to declare? I see no conflicts from commissioners. And we have no testimony in person or online. So the public hearing for ordinance 22-08 is now closed. Does staff have any additional comments?
No, Chair Farr. Thank you.
Seeing none, any discussion from the board? And I see none. Is there a motion? Vice Chair Trieger.
Chair, I'll move adoption of ordinance 22-08 in the matter of amending Lane Code Chapter 4 to make administrative corrections and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Burney. Any discussion to the motion? I hear none. This is an ordinance, Mr. Mokrajewski, so would you please call roll?
Chair Trieger.
Aye.
Commissioner Buck.
Aye.
Commissioner Burney.
Aye.
Commissioner Bozovich.
Aye.
And Commissioner Farr.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Mr. Kincaid, thank you. Captain Kincaid, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Farr. Thank you, Board.
We'll move along then to item 14, which is the first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 2209 in the matter of amending Lane Code Chapter 6 to add a definition of premises and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mokrajewski.
We have a time certain on this.
Do we have a time? We have a, we have a 1:30 time certain. Shoot. Okay, let's push it to next week.
He's here.
Then, Ms. Mokrajewski.
Yeah, the time certain is November 8th.
Very good.
Second reading.
So,
Mr. Tapia is here.
We're on item 14A, which is Mr. Tapia, is a first reading, setting the second reading and public hearing on ordinance 2209. Mr. Tapia.
We
Good afternoon, Chair Farr and Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of the Sheriff's Office and particularly the Civil Division. They requested a code amendment to add one definition of the term premises. The basis of the request was that they were getting inconsistent responses from the court on certain trespass enforcements. The court was applying a very narrow definition of the term, and to avoid inconsistencies and confusion, I just included this dictionary definition, which should avoid all of the problems that we were having in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Tapia. Any questions for council? I see none. Then, Ms. Mokrowski, I see that we're looking for the second reading and public hearing in 7 days from today. Sometimes we require 14 days between hearings. What's the difference between a 7-day and a 14-day? Is it because this is
Commissioner Forrest, we are proposing for
Still on October 25th.
Yeah. I'm thinking it's November 1st. I've got all my fireworks ready for Guy Fawkes Day. Very well, then we do have 14 days. There's no difference between this and a regular time frame. So any further discussion? Commissioner Bonet, I see none. Then I will call for the motion. Vice Chair Trieger.
I will move approval of the first reading and set the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 22-09, hearing in the matter of amending Lane Code Chapter 6 to add the definition of premises and declaring an emergency. Second reading and public hearing to be November 8th, 2022 at 1:30 time certain.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Trigger and seconded by Commissioner Bozevich. Discussion to the motion. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote on the first reading and setting of the second reading. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Council, thank you very much. And then we'll move along to Commissioner's business. Item first is a review of open board assignments. And then Ms. Jones from the Ether will be leading us in this, I do believe, Ms. Jones. And if you open today's,
Chair Farr.
and for anyone watching and for us here in the building, you click on view material, and that brings up open items. And what we're looking at today to the board is we're looking at all of the outstanding. You find it? Looking at all of the outstanding agenda team requests. Some of them go back a few years. Some of them go back greater than 4 years to other commissioners who are no longer seated with us. So Ms. Jones will take us from the top to the bottom on this list to see if it is something that we want to retain on the list or drop it from the list. No need for a great deal of discussion on this unless it warrants discussion. And anything, the only commissioner listed that's not with us today is Commissioner Sorensen. And I'm going to ask Vice Chair Trieger to lead any discussion that may be necessary on Commissioner Sorensen's items. So Ms. Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Farr. I believe I have this up on screen for all of you, so you can see it now. Okay. So we can start with the oldest one we have is actually February 25th of 2020, and it's a Commissioner Sorensen item. So I will just go line by line on these and discuss them. This was a request about the timber industry. I don't know if you'd like to continue with this item or change it or do anything. So I'm just going to turn it over to you guys to go line by line.
Thank you. And I'll call on Commissioner Trieger, but first, Commissioner Buck.
Thank you. I have noted this one since 2020 when we started. And there are a number of people who are actually going around and talking about this is last legislative session's bill regarding this particular item. And I suggested some of them to staff some time ago, but I'm not sure if we really need it or have an appetite for it anymore.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck. And I noticed that we've had action as recently as August of this year. Commissioner Trieger, anything you'd like to add on that? Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you. No, I think, since this came up before I was on the board, I don't have the context for what led to this request. And I do see that staff has been sort of efforting to move this forward, but if there isn't really a need or a desire, I'm happy to take it off the assignments, and we can always bring it back. I know Commissioner Bucks had some presentations on this topic that she recommends, so we can always bring it back, but with maybe a fresher case statement about it.
So with
Yeah,
the,
and
go ahead, Ms. Jones.
as a quick note, the list I have on screen has a few more updates than I did post it this afternoon. I did get a few additional updates this morning. So Mr. Adams let me know that they're not even working on this right now because of Mark Nystrom's departure, and they don't have staff capacity to advance right now.
Yeah, I see that on the data
So,
version.
so with the note that we may bring it back later with consensus, we should, Ms. Jones, let's drop that one from the board assignment list.
Okay. Our next one is yours, Chair Farr. It was to bring Veterans Legacy Project to return to the board to describe their improvements. That one kind of got put on hold because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So I can still set, that one's actually an assignment to me, so I can set that up if that's still something you want to do.
I think it would be beneficial to do it since it is on former Lane County property and we do have an investment in it. I don't think there's any great urgency because a few things have happened since they were able to have more residential programs since COVID has been eased. So COVID restrictions have been eased. I think I don't think it's something that needs to come back within the next half year, but at some point in 2023, I think it'd be good to hear from him.
Okay. The next one is to bring back an amendment to Chapter 14, which would limit extensions to less than 5 years. That's still kind of pending going through the appeals process. So until that's finished, they're not planning on bringing it back. That was a motion to an ordinance, so there's not much that can't be changed. It was part of the ordinance motion. Our next one is Commissioner Trieger's item to look into ways to increase public participation in public meetings. That again is an assignment to me and to Devin to look into costs related to moving to meetings to off-site locations, things like that, which we do have some numbers. We just have not reported it back again because of COVID. It was not something we could easily do. I don't know if that's still something you want to do or if the hybrid meeting has solved those problems for you.
I'm personally happy to remove this from an assignment. Again, it can always come back as people get more used to us being in person and to navigating the hybrid environment. And I think each of us does in our own way efforts to get out into district and do communication with constituents. So I'm fine with this being moved as an assignment.
And I'm assuming we have head nods on that, right?
Yes, I'll confirm that.
Okay. The next one is a Commissioner Trieger assignment to discuss the committee process and what is the right and best path forward towards equity.
I understand this is coming to us in one of our November meetings, that it's getting folded into the equity update. So it doesn't,
Okay.
It can either stay until that's completed or come off as a standalone assignment. And then if the presentation doesn't satisfy, I can make a new one.
I will put a note in our comments on that you've because what I can do is change that to a green item with the date so that we kind of know to track it that way. So I had not heard that was coming back on the items. So I'll check in on that.
Thank you.
And sorry, let me move down. Just so you know, these are sorted by date and then by commissioner. So that's why Commissioner Trieger's, it's going the opposite way of the alphabet. So we have the land acknowledgement. Commissioner Trieger requested staff look into ways that we might incorporate a regular land acknowledgement into our meetings. The request was to have it finalized by August 10th, but then it became a bigger topic and took some research, and I believe there were even some meetings, seminars and stuff on that. So the last follow-up was on May 31st with Latife, and That's what I know on that item so far.
Yeah, I would like this to stay as an assignment without urgency, as there was, you're right, there was a training as part of the equity training in LEAP, and we were all invited, encouraged. I know I attended, I know Commissioner Buck attended, so we were in the same session, and this was with people from across the community and facilitated by someone from the city of Eugene, and it was really excellent. And I think with our sort of commitment to being more thoughtful about our work as peers with tribal governments, we don't want to rush this. So I would like this to stay on so we don't lose it as an assignment, but remove any sense of urgency to ensure we're doing it in a way that is respectful and fits with tribal government relations work that is underway.
Okay.
Commissioner Buck, okay, we have agreement on that. Commissioner Burney, yep, we're go.
Oh, sorry, my mouse is super sensitive. Okay.
How's your cat? I'm sorry.
Here's our,
The next, we are through Commissioner Trieger's and we are to Commissioner Bozovich's. This one is actually a green assignment showing that it is scheduled to come back on November 29th, which was to continue with the development of definition of footprint and look at other issues that were brought up during verbal comments on the 9/21/21 meeting. Given that PW staff will be coming back with this, I'm assuming Commissioner Bozovich, you'd like to leave it as is?
yep, good. Okay, with
Okay.
there's no opposition, stays as is.
Okay, I guess I was wrong because this is still a TBD. Commissioner Trieger, you wanted legal to look into clarification surrounding the Lane County Historical Museum and make sure there's a complete review of the documentation and its collection, specifically to gain clarity about the different roles. I've sent reminders on this, but I haven't heard a lot back on it. I think legal has not had the staff to do it, but
Yeah, I have.
that's where.
Sorry, I have had email communications from Mr. Cheney and also conversations with the new both co-directors and one of the two co-directors at the museum. And so this is still underway. I think we do still want to keep it as an assignment, understanding that folks are working it in around other workloads. So again, no urgency, but I think it does still need to stay as an assignment. Thank you.
Without
Okay.
opposition, stays, okay.
The next one was made by the full board. It was, you all just agreed, and it was to have the staff, legislative affairs and LMD monitor and report back on rulemaking and impacts to Measure 109. I did get an update today that draft rules were published by OHA in September. So it sounds like they're following up on it and just leave that open.
Okay. No opposition?
Right. Commissioner Bozovich requested an action update on issues surrounding the 2022 Oregon County Fair, specifically the outdoor food composting pile and noisy events after the curfew hour. I've sent emails on that. Last one I sent was in August of 2022. I don't have a date or any further update on that.
Chair,
Commissioner Burney, go ahead.
just, I think Ms. Jones's mouse was going too fast. I believe it was the Oregon Country Fair, not the county fair.
You're right, Oregon Country. Yeah.
I was reading it, so I heard country. So.
Yeah, sorry, thank you for the correction.
Okay, still go on that?
Yeah, it's still an issue. It seems like we get this consistent promises to be good, and then we get a violation on the first night of wildly loud, I mean, extremely loud concerts way past curfew. And then they're good the rest of the weekend. And it's like, this is like the second time this has happened. And I kind of think we need to have some kind of method of more rapid enforcement and patrol or something. Something needs to be there to help out. There were some young families that lived near this campground that did this, and they literally had to gather their kids and leave their house.
Okay. Vice Chair.
Thank you. I just want to clarify because the assignment says, and what I recall, most of the conversation revolving around was actually around waste management and
That was
outdoor
it.
food
The secondary,
composting
there
and
was
the
a
public health,
secondary issue.
the
Probably.
potential public
There are
health.
two issues going on last country fair. One was the concert first night, which was a repeat of a previous event. And the second was food composting up against somebody's fence line.
Yeah, because that potential public health concern was
Yeah.
the reason I was especially interested in hearing about that.
There's public health impact to noise too.
Okay, I will send another follow-up on that. It sounds like you want to keep that open.
Okay, with that action. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Buck requested a work session be held with parties involved in the mega grant proposal for the container terminal and railroad in Coos Bay. I did get an update on this item today as well, that the request was made pending with the port and awaiting federal grant announcement. So that's still just kind of in the works.
I think we're waiting to see whether it's been awarded or not, and that will determine whether we have a work session on it or not.
Okay.
Let it ride by consensus. Okay.
Next one was a request to have staff look at the IGA between Eugene and Lane County regarding enforcement zoning issues, which happened to come back to the board today.
Yep, so that's closed.
Yep.
Kind of. It got morphed a bit.
You got direction.
We have a new assignment.
A new
New assignment.
So I am going to close this one then and flow with the new assignment then. Commissioner Farr requests to have LTD present to the board on moving ahead program and their new corridors. And I got an update on this today that staff is working with LTD in the city of Eugene and anticipate presentation by the end of the calendar year.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Farr made a request to look into what the county can do to help the DA recruit and retain staff, immediate recruitment, additional incentives, or pressure. The board's requested the item return as a report back as soon as possible. This one went to Alana Holmes and Steve Mokrahysky. I believe they have addressed it to the board. The question is it ready to close?
Well, I'd say, I mean, discussions are happening. I think we met with the board in exec session and indicated that there was a need to meet with the bargaining unit on that. So those discussions are happening.
Okay. So there's still moving forward then. So let's keep it on the list.
Okay. And here is our Commissioner Buck requested that county staff do an analysis on the indoor multi-purpose facility, and the analysis should include the same three things that were reviewed with the outdoor multi-purpose facility analysis. That is ongoing. That has been assigned, and that's moving onward, and I'm assuming we want to keep that there.
Chair.
Commissioner Burning.
Thank you, Chair. It's my understanding that subsequently we've had discussions with staff, and we're going to have discussions next week with. My understanding is these are the criteria that county administrator told us that they will be working with proponents of an indoor facility to look at. So is this a work assignment, or is it simply an ongoing series of criteria by which new facilities are assessed?
I do believe we're going to see it next on November 1st, which a while ago I thought that was today, but that's actually the next.
This assignment specifically related to the indoor facility.
The indoor.
Session next week is related to the outdoor facility.
Okay.
So this is, I did receive an email from Carrie Westland at Traveling County today with an update on that. I know there's a Traveling County board retreat on Thursday. So we're actively working with Traveling County on that process, but it is not unlike the outdoor process in the standpoint that we've been working a year on that one. So will be an ongoing effort.
That's what I thought. Thank you, Chair.
And in fact,
And-
it's been longer than a year for that matter, and it probably will be longer than a year in the future. Go ahead, Diana, sorry.
I was just going to say the assignment was made by Commissioner Buck very clearly with those same three criteria. So even though it sounds like it's the outdoor one, we kind of wanted, the assignment was to do exactly the same thing for the indoor.
Yep.
So without objection, we'll leave it in place as is.
Okay. Commissioner Trieger made an assignment to coordinate with the county administrator, community justice director, sheriff, DA, HHS, and behavioral health to review and return to the board with an update on the 10-year public safety plan. This was assigned to Greg Rickoff to be the lead, and I sent an email to him, and I'm not sure where it's at now. Other than he's probably working on getting that team together.
Yeah, and when I was reviewing these materials last night, that one and the 10-year safety plan and the community justice rehabilitation services new department programming update, if it makes sense for them to be folded together or keep them separate, I have no strong feeling about, but I wondered if we wanted to sort of merge and morph into one, if that's helpful to staff to make that one assignment where basically the update on the CJRS department includes how it interfaces with the public safety plan, or if it makes more sense. I'm asking the administrator, I think, more than anything, to keep them separated.
I think they're probably, I don't know that there's a lot of benefit to mixing to joining them together, and they really are separate. I mean, the 10-year public safety plan is a coordinated effort between all of our public safety functions within the county. And I think that's separate, as I understand it, from the desire to hear an update on this new department structure.
That's helpful. And that's part of why I wanted the update on the new department structure and the plan, so I can understand where they are and aren't overlapping. So I think it's still beneficial to get an update on the plan.
Okay.
So remains in place as is without objections. Okay.
Yeah, and I would say with no particular, I mean, we're not talking about, I guess the assumption is there's no urgency unless we name a time window for these to happen, right? This could be really beneficial to incoming commissioners to hear as well. So it'd be fine to schedule it sometime in the first quarter or so.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be the only amendment to the assignment I would make, Diana.
To schedule it for when?
For later in the first quarter of the new year, the new calendar year.
That's the 10-year public safety plan, not the CJRS, right?
Correct.
Okay. Take that note. Okay. The next assignment, Commissioner Bucks, and it was the Pleasant Hill and Goshen Fire and Rescue Facilities. It was a request to give staff more than 15 minutes to assist them in reorganizing their district, and that they may need board assistance to facilitate a new district and may need board approval. I did get an update from Steve Adams on that, and it said they're awaiting staff capacity to respond.
This one may go through the first 6 months of next year as they're trying to reorganize. So I'd like to keep it on, but it might bump down in their priority level till they get time.
Okay. Okay. The next update was regarding Blue River Fire and Recovery. A new drain field needed to be installed, but the installation would be outside of the boundaries, so we would need a potential land use action in the future to incorporate the drain field. I got an update from Steve Adams on that as well today. He said the work's in progress and updates will be provided to the board in regular fire recovery updates. So assuming we keep that open until it's done, is that what you'd like to do?
Yes, please.
Okay.
No objections, just leave it, Diana, thanks.
Okay. Next one is Commissioner Trieger's. It was a report on the impact of increased TLT fees on voucher providers. There was a specific question asked about domestic violence victims, review the code language and possibly update the code with clarifying language. Jeff Kincaid and Marcus Vijar are working on that assignment. I believe Jeff was trying to get some clarifying questions answered. Commissioner Trigger, I'm not sure if he's reached out to you yet.
He has, and we've had some back and forth about it. My concern in reading the exemptions, which got read off in the meeting, but now seeing them in writing, is that my concern is that the increase negatively impacts the budgets of our nonprofits that use hotel vouchers for sheltering for unhoused folks as well as domestic violence victims. And the exemptions listed talk about if the funding comes from a government agency, either directly or through a voucher for emergency or temporary shelter. So my concern and what I'm looking for is whether there's a need or an opportunity to look at an exemption of the increase on our nonprofits, because unless they're using contract dollars of ours or the states to pay for those vouchers, in other words, if they're using private fundraised dollars or grants from other non-governmental sources, this exemption doesn't apply.
Okay. So you have talked to Jeff about that and he's looking into that and you'd like to keep this assignment open?
I would, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I know last Jeff and I communicated he was going to do a little more digging and conversation with some of the hotel industry folks. But I think it's a topic I see the chair nodding to. I think we were all a little unsure what the exemptions actually covered, and with a little more digging, as I said, you have to be using public dollars to be exempted from TLT. So my request specifically was whether there's a way without too much burden to exempt the increased portion, at least, for anyone using voucher programs for emergency shelter and help.
So we'll keep that open. Yep. Okay.
Okay. Getting close to the end here, folks. We had an assignment to invite OHCS Director Bell to a future Board of Commissioners meeting. That assignment went to Steve Adams and Matt McCray, and Steve Adams updated me today that staff's in ongoing conversations with OHCS staff on wildfire recovery funding challenges that have been outlined for the board, and they do not yet have a date for Director Bell to present.
I'm patient.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next one was schedule a time for the new CJRS department to give an update to the board. I sent an email to Greg Rickoff and Kelly Barlow last week, and I'm just waiting to hear back for what day works for them.
And I will just add again, if it's, depending on what the rest of the board feels, if that's something that can come back early in the new year, that would be okay, again, for the benefit of incoming commissioners, since it's a newly formed department and new work. I'm fine with that waiting, but not terribly long in the new year.
Okay. Next assignment is also Commissioner or Vice Chair Trigger assignment, which was to add 2 quarterly Board of Health updates in addition to the annual, the semi-annual updates that we do. This actually is almost complete. I've proposed the dates to Jocelyn for the next year. I'm just waiting for her confirmation. And then the assignment will be closed because it will roll to the future agenda list as recurring quarterly meetings. So they just get set that way and the assignment gets closed.
Perfect.
Okay. And our last one, and don't ask me why this isn't at the top, other than I might not have grabbed it in the sorting, but this is because I think it's one of our oldest items. Yeah, 2020. Because there was 2 dates it was talked about. This is to rename Lane County. The staff's been asked to return to the board with a work session that looks into the renaming of Lane County, possibly set up an educational program for students, have the county administrator bring back a recommendation to the board for the creation of an ad hoc committee for the item. Direction was further given consult with legal for a legal analysis of this issue and what is the board's authority. That got put on hold again because of COVID and just staff challenges and timing. The assignment was then given, Latife was added to the assignment on April 28th. So that's where that's at right now.
Since my name's on there, can I say something?
Yes.
There was a lot of energy. We're talking 2.5 years ago, something like that. Yeah. There was a lot of energy publicly at that time. That was before the kind of equity measures and initiatives, and now part of the lenses by which the county looks at everything it does. I think the energy is gone. But one thing that I would like to know, because it sure seems like a lot of these items were updated as of today. So I'd like to know, did legal counsel at least provide a legal analysis of what our options are in this regard?
Not
One in the room can answer that. Okay.
I don't know if they talked to Mr. Mokrahysky about it. This was assigned originally to Devin Ashbridge and Jeff Kincaid. So I don't have any notes from legal. You can see all the notes that I have to the side there.
So it seems to me that if we go right to the last sentence of that assignment, that kind of would define whether there's even an assignment there, much less if there's energy behind it at this point in time. So maybe we could at least request that of legal counsel.
Okay.
Sooner rather than later. It's been 2.5 years.
Yeah, I will. I do just so you know, I do send updates and follow-ups pretty regularly on these. So one of the reasons we got a lot of updates today was because they were Steve Adams, and I just happened to be talking to him, so we updated those.
Now that's my sense, but I don't know if other commissioners feel more strongly about it than I on that assignment.
I think that'd be a great next step, Commissioner, to have a legal opinion on that. Yes, Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Berney, for that. And I have mixed feelings about this. Because this originated before I was on the board. I would want to see this come to us from community, and perhaps that's how this became an assignment, was community was reaching out to commissioners. And I know there has been some conversation. There was a city club topic on it. We get periodic emails. So I'm mixed about it, just thinking about workload and timeline for council's office and transition. If there isn't community momentum and request for us to consider this, because this really is something that should come to us from the community, whether spending that time is the best use of time, or keep it as an open assignment, but put a time later into next year or something like that. That's my only conflict about it.
I'm good either way, Chair. I don't think it would take very long to get a quick legal analysis, personally. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll take hours and days of legal work, but I don't think that's the case. And yes, Commissioner Trieger, this was generated and came from community at that time, which I tried to mention. I don't feel that energy at this time any longer.
So how about this, Vice Chair? We ask legal to give us the opinion on it. If their opinion could say it's not, there is no avenue, in which case it's dead.
Sure.
And if there is an avenue, then we'll leave it on the kind of similar list for it to be reinvigorated.
That works great.
Okay.
Thank
All right
you.
with you,
Thank
Commissioner?
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Trieger.
All right.
And
Includes the list.
that is our last assignment that's open. So I will I will incorporate these into the list that gets published and sent out, and the new one will be forthcoming.
We didn't make a ton of changes on there, Ms. Jones, but it feels good to have gone through it, to at least be recognizing that we are still active on those.
Yes.
Thank you. Then we'll move
Thank you.
agenda to item 15, which is Commissioner's business. Item 15B, excuse me, announcements. Do we have announcements from commissioners? I am looking around. You're in danger of me making an announcement. Okay, then here we go. Yesterday, just a quick announcement. I went to over to Springfield to watch the inauguration of the new police officers, and it was really a pretty wonderful affair. They had enticed a Alaska police officer to move down here with his family. This police officer is a naturalized citizen of the United States, born in Mexico originally. The second is an old friend of mine, Josh Bew. He was the reason that I was over there. He had a lifelong dream of wearing blue. And as of yesterday at about 3 o'clock, he's not just wearing blue, but he's wearing a badge along with it. Josh Bew, congratulations. Ingrid Bew, your entire family, congratulations on achievement of a lifetime goal. And congratulations to the Springfield Police Department adding 2 pretty outstanding new officers. All righty. Any future board assignment requests besides the ones that have already surfaced in this meeting? I'm seeing none, Mr. Mokrakis, so what do you have?
2 items we will have on November 8th will be the return of the contract with the Standard and the discussion on the state PLO program. And then the second item is for land management. Keir Miller, who sent me language to make this a little bit more clear, directing land management staff to research and return to the board with both short and long-term options that would allow for emergency overnight sleeping within the urban growth boundaries of Eugene and Springfield. Options should include, but not limited to, enactment of an emergency order or ordinance and code updates to the urban growth boundary land use codes.
Okay.
That's it.
And just for clarity, it's not general overnight sleeping. It's specific to uniformizing, making uniform the city of Eugene's camping ordinance and Lane County's ordinance inside of the urban growth boundary. I think that's probably inherent in what Mr. Miller sent for.
We'll make sure we put that in there for emergency safe sleep camping type programs.
Okay. Right. Any corrections or additions? I see none. Then with this gavel, third time I've said it today, our next meeting, we have no requirement for additional executive session today. Our next meeting is November 1st at 9 o'clock a.m. Harris Hall, and we are adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.